G'day guys, and today it's time to talk about something that came out of the Department of Home Affairs down here in Australia. So just on the 22nd of March, Michael Pezzulio, I'm sure I'm butchering that pronunciation, made a statement to the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Legislation Committee. And during that speech, in his second paragraph, he said the following. During this Harmony Week, the department has rededicated itself to standing resolutely against the extremist ideology of white supremacy and its adherents, to whom I say, you are on our radar, and you will not be able to incite the racial strife that you seek. The scrutiny and pressure that you are under will only intensify. Now this is pretty standard stuff following any kind of major criminal activity, but what caught my eye to this story, and what made it newsworthy in my mind, is the question of what exactly does the Australian government consider to be white supremacy? Because as you may recall, just last year in October 2018, the It's Okay to be White bill was defeated in the Australian Senate. So it was essentially a vote on acknowledging the deplorable rise of anti-white racism and the attacks on Western civilization, and that it is simply okay to be white. There's nothing wrong with that. And there was a lot of outcry about this. People got very uppity about this sort of thing. So the exact politician who put this forth, Pauline Hanson, had a few extra things to say which I think warrant a mention. It is indeed okay to be white. Such a simple sentence should go without saying, but I suspect many members in this place would struggle to say it. People have a right to be proud of their cultural background, whether they are black, white, or brindle. Now, in principle that seems fair enough, It doesn't really matter whether you're black or white, you should be able to be sort of happy with what your skin colour is, and there's nothing inherently wrong with what your skin colour is, it's not something you choose. But apparently people do take issue with this in the Australian Parliament. So we have the Greens leader, Richard Di Natale, saying that, it's okay to be white slogan has got a lot of history in the white supremacist movement, and that's where these clowns get most of their material from. And he immediately tangented and started talking about it's not okay to be Aboriginal, because Aboriginal people are more likely to die longer, to be locked up, and more likely to experience racism. Now for the former things, they are products of people's choices. So that's got nothing to do with whether it's inherently okay to be Aboriginal. There's nothing wrong with being Aboriginal. You didn't choose to do that, but if you're going to partake in risky behaviour such as cigarette smoking and increased criminality, don't be surprised when you die younger or get locked up. For the latter claim, I haven't actually looked up the data for that, but if that is the case, then that is not ideal, of course. Now, the people who voted against this bill were mostly Labor and Greens, although there were 4 members of the crossbench. Indeed, I do think it bears mention that every single member of the Greens party within the Senate voted against this bill. So we've got a quote here from one of the crossbenchers, and Mr. Darren Hinch says, "This sort of racism is not only wrong, it could be dangerous." I don't really see how saying it's okay to be white is racist, but, whatever. With the federal election looming, I'm starting to think that Senator Hanson and her former colleague Senator Anning are now locked in a race to see who can be the biggest, the loudest, the most racist bigot in their contest to see who can get to the bottom of the sewer first. That's what this obscene motion is all about. Now I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Mr. Hinch. I don't think this is at all about seeing who can be the biggest racist, the biggest bigot and that sort of thing. That's far too one-dimensional, but I suppose that makes for a good political slogan. The statement, "It's okay to be white," as a piece of mimetic warfare is not just taken on face value. No, what this essentially is a piece of verbal bait. You just put out this seemingly innocuous slogan, "It's okay to be white," and because we're in such a hyper-partisan environment where people are under a lot of social stress and the Overton window has been shifted so far to the left, people freak out and genuinely think this is an act of white supremacy. What essentially ends up happening is that you've now goaded someone into voicing opposition to the statement, revealing what is essentially a latent anti-white bias. And this is where we get to the problem at hand. Are people who simply say it's okay to be white, or anything along those lines, going to be under increased scrutiny? Are we going to have public servants and government agents looking into people who espouse these kind of views? That's got to be a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people will espouse views such as, hey, look at all these cool scientific advancements that white people made, and hey, look at all these cool philosophical arguments that white people throughout history have made. Does that come under the banner of white supremacism? How much money are we going to spend on investigating people with innocuous views? how much time is going to be spent trawling through Twitter, Facebook, social media, and that sort of thing, because now you can't get on Bitchute, looking at very, very tame stuff when government officials could be doing something more important, like looking for actual criminals rather than people who just have very innocuous views of it's okay to be white. At the moment, we don't actually know. There's been no mention of just how many people the Australian government is looking into, or how many additional people they want to look into, and that sort of thing. Is it safe to assume that the Australian government is wasting taxpayer funds? I'll answer that question with one of my own. Does the Pope wear a funny hat?